I should probably remake the show intro too.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you watch your A game. A made no rain from the track when we unite and spit. This is an A game, better bring your A game. Competition starting to get thick, it's the click, so I hope you watch your A game. A made no rain from the track.
Hey now, it's the Mike and JD show, and I'm your host, Mike Gilbert, and I'm joined as always by JD by God Oliva. How you doing, JD?
I'm all right. I'm just looking at all this stuff because you changed the logo unilaterally, and I'm like, oh, I got to change the video intro. We got to put a new banner up. We got to do this and that. It's a different color scheme now.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to be in a hurry because they did do it kind of on a whim, and I'll tell you why.
You did.
Yeah. I just kind of did it without notice or anything. So, and here's why. And I actually wasn't planning on debuting it until Rich asked for it, because he saw that I was playing around with the new logo. I was watching one of my favorite 49er podcasts. It's a Bay Area sports reporter named Larry Krueger, and he's on KMBR. He does like a YouTube channel out here or out in San Francisco, and he was using the same Canva template that we had been using, and I was like, oh, that's kind of annoying, but I'm not too upset by it. And then I saw like 2 or 3 more on YouTube using the same damn Canva template that we were using. I was like, okay, I gotta get something to go completely original. I can't be having everybody use the same template. That just gets on my nerves. So I switched it all up, and but I really like the way it looks.
That's the problem with templates, is that there's nothing original about them, and anyone can do them who has access to, well, Canva in this case. And Canva is just like Photoshop for, amateur hour. So, it is what it is.
You're talking about me, sir. Yes. For years, I've been using Canva because I don't know how to use Photoshop. In fact, in order to resize the photo that we use, I sent it to my wife, who does know how to use Photoshop, and to get it 1400 by 1400 to get to Rich. I do do a podcast with a guy who's like a literal Photoshop expert.
I'm gonna say, I actually teach this for a living. That is literally my job, is I teach kids how to use Photoshop. I use it every damn day. And I'm like, he didn't tell me about any of this stuff. I had no idea.
Yeah, but can you teach a 41-year-old master sergeant how to use Photoshop?
Mike, I could teach anyone to use Photoshop because all of my lessons are available on Google Drive, and all I have to do is give you access to all my files.
Shoot, we might do that.
I can't believe you haven't asked me for this over the last couple of years. I would have just given it to you.
Yeah. But hey, guys, we got a jam-packed show today. Believe it or not, a lot has actually happened. We're going to rehash some stories, but we got some updates on some of the biggest stories that we've been covering for a while. And when we get updates like this, we need to bring BJ Bethel on from SC Scoops, because he's been covering the WBD TV deal, the Janelle Grant case. He's been covering everything. But before I bring him on, I do want to put him over, because John Oran from the Sports Business Journal, he's from Puck now. He used to be SBJ. He's now part of Puck. In his latest newsletter, he confirmed essentially the WBD deal is done with AEW. But what was most interesting about it, and the reason why we're talking about it again today, is that he confirmed that basically the $170 million per year that had been floating around the internet by BJ Bethel is essentially accurate. That he said it's in the ballpark of what he's heard as well. There's a lot going on with that. So let's go ahead and bring on BJ Bethel. What's up, BJ?
Hi guys, how you doing? I hate Canva too. I can definitely tell which one of you is the film guy. Now I got to redo the intro. Now I got to redo this. But I've heard this a million. This is why I don't touch anything at work that has anything to do with graphics. I'm a disaster at it. But thanks for having me on, guys. It's great.
I want to thank you, because that number that is now being floated publicly showed up in our personal DM thread about 2 months ago. So turns out somebody's got good sources.
Well, yeah.
I meant us. We have you. We have good sources. You're our source. Thank you.
I mean, what I initially heard was I mean, by the time this is all panned out, and from what I gathered from the deal, 170 was going to be what they would get. That would include what they have now on TV, plus streaming content to max. Now, what that ends up being in the end all be all of things, I don't know. I think there's going to be a pay-per-view component to this. I think that's going to come as they start moving that onto the Max platform and making that available, because right now they don't have the ability to do that. But the 170 million, that's kind of been in the ballpark. I've heard, I mean, during all of this, I've heard anything from 160 to 200 by the time
Mhm.
they're done. Obviously it's huge money. It's huge for them. This is, this is a 2% gain over their previous contract. This makes them profitable. They got some really good years out of this, 3 years guaranteed plus a fourth year option. Their last couple contracts have been 3, 4 year deals, so this matches with that. Um, I think a phenomenal job by them, and yeah, that was the numbers I was hearing pretty early on. That was kind of what I think they both sides pretty much knew what they were going to be at early. I think it was just where things were going to end up and what was going to get shown. What where is going to all depend on what ends up getting where. And the hardest things in these deals is like, okay, how do you calculate what streaming's worth? How do you calculate what pay-per-views are worth? Things like that.
So what we're looking at right now with the 170, and I just want to just so that we're clear, is we're looking at 170 is the existing television content, which there might be a little bit discrepancy. Dave Meltzer kind of had something. We'll talk about that in a sec. But the
That could be
existing,
off a little bit, but I think that's
yeah,
pretty close to what the number's going to be close
yeah.
to when they have
So
when the final WBD package is done. I think
yeah,
it's going to be around 170.
yeah. So 170 for the existing TV content that will also then be either streamed, co-streamed on Max, or just become available on Max, kind of like what WWE and Hulu has right now, right?
Yeah. You'll
Okay,
see
so
that where the old shows will be popping up there like they have been in some international markets, plus the library, things like that. I
yeah.
don't know if that includes Ring of Honor's library. I don't know what is going to happen with them. With all the TV that's going to be added to this deal, I imagine there's going to be some changes where they're going to need a lot of bodies and talent to, film all this new TV.
Yeah. So Dave did mention Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio that it's possible. No, I think it was just on his website. Sorry, he mentioned on the website that it is possible that Rampage could be going away, and that Shockwave
Yes.
would then be taking over. Shockwave would be the proposed new television show. Man, God, do we need another new television show? But new television show that could be heading that they're shopping around to broadcast networks, which is
Yeah.
what John Oran was saying. Their FS1 has been tossed around out there, which would not be broadcast but cable. With Rampage going away, could you see Dynamite go into 3 hours?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I just think with so much product, I think it would be really hard for them to do. And I think what you'll see more likely is Collision moving off of Saturday. I think that's some Jay Fowler kind of broke that. I mean, he did break that. He put that out on
Really?
Twitter.
I heard
Yeah,
that.
but he put out that the Collision's probably moving off of Saturday, maybe to Thursday or another night of the week.
Okay.
But that would be likely what happens with that. Just because with college football coming up, it hasn't got the ratings close to what Dynamite has, and I think a lot of that's going to depend on what happens with the Fox deal. I know that right now, from what I understood when I was here, I was not the first person to hear about the Fox deal until somebody else reported. I can't remember who was the first person who mentioned that FS1 and Fox were part
Zarian.
of it. Was
It
this
was Andrew
Andrew
Zarian.
Zarian? He's kind of the guy on this stuff.
Yeah.
He's really the guy who's really deep into this, and Zarian had it first, but I hadn't heard anything about any of the broadcast networks getting pitches either until Oran's article came out a couple days ago in his Puck newsletter. But I think they'll probably get 20 to 30 million out of the whatever show they deliver to FS1 or Fox. I know a lot of people I've talked to think that's way too high for something that will go on FS1, but I think they also need something that can drive content, and it is an original show to help that network out. Because right now, the only thing that's getting live beings over there is sports games,
Yeah.
live sports, just like everything else. But I think it's interesting that you're seeing all this movement. You're seeing other players involved. Charter just signed a big deal with Warner Brothers Discovery that kept them at the same carriage fees as they had when they still had the or still had the NBA, which is a
which
big deal for them.
that's a
That
big win because
That's
they were
yes,
worried that they would lose. So for those of you guys that don't know, WBD with their cable networks, this is how they make their money is through carriage fees through Comcast, Spectrum, and Charter, and all the local cable companies, as well as advertising. But this is a big source of the revenue. So they were afraid that by losing the NBA, they would be less prestigious and that their carriage fees would go down. But that did not happen with Charter.
So carriage
no,
fees, definition of carriage fees, that's the money that the network, the cable systems actually pay
Yeah.
Warner
yeah,
to have their network on there. So like we throw those terms around, but I don't think a lot of people really understand what that
yes,
means. So
that's true.
they're getting money just to have the network on there. And like
Yeah.
Mike was saying, the worry was without the NBA, they were worthless essentially. But apparently that is not true because Charter is one of the biggest cable systems in the US still. So for
Yeah.
them to keep that's a massive deal for WBD in
Oh,
general.
it's huge because that covers also Spectrum.
Mhm.
Spectrum's owned by Charter, and it just how I learned it. Somebody explained this to me one time is you pay your cable bill, and that money goes in your cable bill goes to the companies that are the channels on your cable network. So that's what the carriage fees are. Um, so them getting the same value that they had for having the NBA, that's a huge deal for them. So that was a big win for WBD. I think that's good news for them, especially as they're trying to attract. They're trying to work with other networks. I kind of like this deal how they're trying to work with other networks on trading sports leagues around, trading games around, trying to get involved in the college football playoff. I think that's a good thing that they got going. I also think that I like the way they've done the how they handled kind of the post T and or not. I keep saying TNT when I say NBA, but how they've handled kind of the post NBA deal with this, where they've been kind of aggressive. They're signing, they got AEW under wraps. They're looking at getting the Big East basketball. They're going to be showcasing it on True TV. They're not shying away from sports and trying to get into reality shows or something like that. They're actually rebranding True TV to be TNT Sports for in the prime time hours. So, and all this works really well for AEW.
Yeah, absolutely. And because as we've been saying, everybody felt that when the NBA left WBD, that those channels essentially would not fold, but they would take a big hit. Now they still are going to take a big hit. Like
Oh
Big
yeah,
East basketball is nowhere near as popular as the NBA, but still, like
no,
they're leveling out. They're not completely giving up on live sports, and I think that's a good sign for those channels, but specifically for AEW. Now with the pay per view component with Max, it looks like you're probably going to get either like live rights or next day rights to all the TV shows. Now, with the pay-per-view component, I think Sean Ross Sapp was the one that said that he believes that would be a separate deal altogether, kind of like what WWE did with Peacock.
That's
How Raw and SmackDown are with USA, that's a separate deal, but the pay-per-view right deal with Peacock is completely separate. Now, we're looking at them doing a separate deal and the pay-per-view is just being part of your Max subscription, or are they looking at possibly like doing individualized pay-per-views on the Max platform like they do on BR Sports, or is we talking about a next level sports tier on HBO Max, which is what I think people have been thinking is becoming, or do we not know yet?
I don't think we really know yet. I
Yeah,
think there's a lot that's going to evolve out of this. It's not,
yeah,
the deal starts in January, and they've been selling. The way you can kind of tell they knew this was done was that they've been selling this for a while for two advertisers, for a long time that they've been selling Dynamite and Collision. But I think you're going to see pay-per-view. It'll be more like maybe Bleacher Report moving to Max, where they'll
okay,
move their pay-per-views off that into Max, where then the pay-per-view thing that they do, the tier, will be there. That's what I think it'll be. I just think right now it's just too. I don't think they can come to a number where they can kind of like see it, and it's like, okay, how do we agree on, how do we calculate what future pay-per-view values will be, or how much this is worth? Because, as with buy rates, um, and, excuse me, I've been kind of under the weather today, so my throat's kind of giving me some
all
talking
good.
issues, but but I think it's more along the lines of like, okay, this could be evolving, but right now I think the plan would be if they get pay-per-view capability on Max, you would start seeing them just moving that from Bleacher Report to Max, which would be a
Gotcha.
great thing for AEW because there's a lot more people with Max than BR Report
Yeah.
or Bleacher Report. And I think also it would also have all the other streaming content on there and things like that, where you'd be able to watch old Dynamites and old Collision shows and old pay-per-views.
Yeah, because as of
Now,
right now,
I will
there's
tell you this: if I don't know any of this for certain, like anybody else, I will tell you that if they manage to get 170 million per without any kind of streaming deal with Max, and that's going to be added on, then Tony Khan needs to be sent. Tony Khan and whoever his negotiating partners were that were helping negotiate this deal, this firm they hired, they should be sent to Gaza to help negotiate something between the Israelis and them, because that's incredible. I mean,
yeah,
that would be an incredible get for them. I mean, you're talking about a deal that was probably worth about 70 to 90 million. They've doubled that without any streaming. I mean, if what SAP's reporting, and I think Oran may have reported something the same thing. If they got that kind of deal without the streaming element, that's fantastic. And
yeah.
that's without Fox being added. That would be one hell of a deal for them. So we'll see what happens.
Here's where I'm at with this is it's like this perception war that they've been losing for more than a year now. Like this is a tremendous victory for everyone
Yeah.
involved over there. Tremendous victory.
Oh, this
And
is huge. This guarantees the survival of the company almost
for years to
permanent.
come. Yeah, for
Yeah.
years to come. And this is like what's wild is these grifters are going to keep moving goalposts because they have to. Like they're so committed to the
Yeah.
grift right now. So this is what's fascinating to me is that they've succeeded. Fox essentially if Fox, let's be real, Fox canceled SmackDown. They
Yeah.
did not renew the
Yeah.
contract. They can't. That's a cancellation,
Yeah.
right? And if they were to pick up AEW in any way, shape, or form, that's just a massive, massive win
Oh,
for
just
essentially
public
a second tier
relations
company.
wise, this just public PR wise, it would be a huge victory for them. And it would put them on such another level as a company where, you know, where people still in media reporting call them second tier. You can't call them that anymore. And I mean, even if you're kind of not, I mean, I don't think they're second tier at all. They're definitely big leagues. They've always been big leagues. You don't do the things that they've done and not be big leagues. You don't put 80,000 people in Wembley if you're not big league.
You don't
You
pay
know,
the people
that's
enough
just a
to do that.
that's just the ignorant of the wrestling business. Um, but you know, I've heard some dumb comments. I don't even know they were associated with. One person was like, I think was commenting on a deal and said they didn't understand it because, you know, who needs AEW when WWE is now better and
Yeah.
healthier.
I was going to
I
talk
know
about that.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was gonna
I don't
talk,
know who said it, but
I do.
It
that was
was
the
it was
dumbest thing I've ever heard in my
It was
life.
it was
Bra-
Brandon Ross. It was Brandon
Yeah.
Ross from Lightshed who said it
Yeah.
on Pollock and Thurston. Pollock and Thurston typically are some of have some of the soberest takes in the
I've
in
never heard
the
of
wrestling media.
Lightshed or Brandon
Yeah,
I mean,
Ross.
because they're not wrestling
Wrestling-
media. That guy is more of like a generalized combat sports. He was there to talk more about the TKO stuff, and they're asking him AEW questions, and he didn't really seem more of like a casual type of guy. But he's
Yeah.
very good about. Oh, I don't know if he's very good. This is the first time I ever heard the guy, but they brought him on because he seemingly. The rumor is he's knowledgeable about the TV business when it relates to combat sports. And so the comment was, if you're a WWE fan and WWE is good again, why do you even need AEW? That's the way that I took that comment. I didn't take it as well, a lot of people are saying that he was saying that like
Okay, so he was
AEW shouldn't be in
misquoted.
business. I don't think he was saying it like that. He was saying it like from like a casual perspective, right? I think that's the way he was coming at it.
No,
No, I mean-
I think Mike's covering this guy's ass a little bit. I think this is classic Legentil stuff. I think this is a guy who's clearly connected to Nick Khan, clearly connected to ensuring the TKO narrative. And I
Yeah.
think that Pollock and Thurston gave him a platform with which to push some WWE PR, because what he actually said was that the company was so bad 5 years ago under Vince, because that's WWE
Yeah.
mantra right now is bad man gone. Everything good. Everything good now.
Yeah,
So
they're
he's
trying to
questioning-
push that.
for sure.
and
So
it's
he's
not-
questioning
yeah.
why it's necessary to have an AEW, because this is the problem. Like we've talked a lot about where TKO is bitching about AEW overvaluing contracts, specifically with Swerve and the offer to Daniel Garcia. They don't like it. TKO doesn't like the fact that there's another company that is now legitimately successful, Right?
I
Yeah.
gotta say, I'm really surprised that TKO and Triple H do not like the fact that a black athlete and another one whose last name's Latino got very good, high-paying deals. That seems to fit kind of into the narrative of how they operate.
BG, are you insane with a man that wore the Iron Cross on his gear for 20 years might have some issues?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just the Booker T feud and some of the other Latino wrestling deals you've seen. Having a whole you got Psychosis, who's one of the greatest luchadors that ever lived, riding a John Deere lawn tractor around, going up and down the ramp. I
Yeah,
mean,
they called him Juan Deers, by the way. I don't know if you guys remember that.
No, I didn't remember that. Thanks for my.
I mean,
Yeah,
this is why you need an AEW.
yeah,
It's like, and this is why I mean, Swerve Strickland, I think, put us all best and so eloquent when he on FS1's little special about Tony Khan yesterday before Dynamite aired. Which interesting timing on that, by the way.
yeah,
Just talking about, this is the place that's getting everybody paid. It's getting you better. It's like Deanna Peraza is getting her master's degree because they have a tuition reimbursement program. I know other wrestlers that have done that, and other employees that have done it there. I know producers that have been doing that. It's made the entire business better, and for people that don't want that, they want to go back to the old days when they had people on the main event roster making 70, 80,000 a year and still having to pay for their own travel, which was not all that long ago. I'm sure AEW is a bad thing,
yeah.
Well,
but for the
it's
rest of us, for us carrying nice human beings who really give a damn about each other and how these athletes, are able to survive, it's a great thing.
think about how great it is for Appalachia-based lawyers to be able to be able to pursue frivolous lawsuits. Think about
keep
how
keep
much of a boon this is.
Yeah.
I
Hey,
I
I do have to correct the record. I was not covering Brandon Ross's ass. I don't even know who that guy is. I just
I
listened to
never heard of the
podcasts before
term,
the
so
outrage on Twitter, and AEW fans were really sensitive about this
They
stuff.
are.
So
They're
I
very
didn't. I
sensitive.
did not really hear it that way. So I'm not covering Brandon Ross's ass. I've never heard of
I
that
didn't even
guy.
know the guy's name until you
I
mentioned it. I just
I
saw
just happen
people.
to like. I just happen to like Pollock and Thurston's podcast.
I do too,
I
usually.
was
Yeah,
just
I mean,
listening to the
Brandon and
podcast,
John are
and
fantastic.
yeah,
I mean,
I
yeah. And people were coming after Thurston a little bit too because Thurston said that they're getting this deal despite the fact that they've cooled down as far as popularity
yeah.
and
yeah,
perception goes, and people are coming after him like that. Guys, that's true.
Mhm.
yeah,
Like
that's
he
a
didn't
true
say a
fact.
single thing that was wrong. Like they have cooled off quite a bit.
I thought the same thing Brandon thinks in that regard, because I was like, this is really going to hurt them ratings wise with the slippage. But luckily my sources were on the TV side of things, and they were telling me, well, they were putting a lot of this in perspective. They're the ones that have
Yeah,
been telling me the numbers on this. If I had to guess at what the numbers on this deal would have been, I would have guessed 140, 150. And that's
yeah,
what AEW people were telling me what they think they would have got a year ago on Collision started, and the ratings were a lot better. And the demo was a lot hotter. And hearing, I got this number from people that I talked to within the business and in the TV side from 10 years of working as a journalist and being affiliated with TV. That's people I knew and talked to. And I mean, it wasn't a number I came up with. I mean, I think they were very fortunate to get this deal, considering, some of the ratings falls they've had.
yeah,
It's not just, a lot of it is they're losing viewership in households, but that demo is falling. I mean, that demo share is falling. They are not as popular as they were. Now that doesn't mean, but the thing is, and this is what TV people kept telling me, is they are a top 5 show,
yes,
and it's impossible to make a top 5 show. It isn't, you can't make a top 5 show anymore. It's almost luck. And to get one that finishes number 1 a lot of the time is huge. And for people that think that this broadcast thing may not be a possibility, Dynamite beats a lot of beats some of the Fox primetime programming during the week. Maybe not on Wednesday night or whatever, going against it, but I know that this was something I know Dave Meltzer said, and I think maybe Brian Alvarez, Dave Meltzer, Mike Semper, maybe it was Garrett. I can't remember, because I've been binging podcasts trying to get as
yeah,
much information through this as I can, because I'm talking and I'm all this, but not to make any excuses, but this has been said by other people that they are beating primetime network programming in a lot of instances. This is something that this show has done since it started. and that's a big deal. And
We, oh,
and
sorry.
another factor to that is that their advertising demographics, sorry guys, but their advertising demographics are so much better fitted for network than what WWE's are. That makes them also a little bit more attractive. Plus, they're cheaper.
So
Cheaper. Yeah.
cheaper is a big key. They're going to
Yeah.
save a lot of money with
Yeah,
AEW. Here's the thing that AEW fans have, like, I know because they're super sensitive. Like, you have to look at this like this. Yes, your show is a lot less popular than it was, and it's still got a big deal.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
know.
win. That's a huge win. Don't get all up in your panties about that.
Yeah,
Be proud of that. Hey,
I mean,
we
I
didn't
don't.
have a great year, and look what we did. That's
Yeah,
awesome. Brag
I mean,
about
I
that.
think it's. I mean, to me, the thing that I'm concerned about, I like it when wish they had bigger crowds. To me, that's
Yeah,
the
that's a
sign of
problem.
your.
Mhm.
The gates are a bigger issue, I think, than the ratings right now. I like seeing. I miss the big crowds they had where all the lights are on, and you hear all the. And people, I remember when Danielson was talking about this and Ruby Soho, your AEW moment when you come in for the first time as a surprise and you get that blasting loud ovation that people hadn't heard since like Nitro or ECW was around, and wrestlers were really into that. I want to see those kind of crowds again. Just as a fan, you know.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, my care about the ratings is just that I want WWE and AEW's ratings to be big enough that they can stay around.
I want to look at something um from a historical point of view. When WWE signed the SmackDown deal in 2017, I believe is when the
Yes.
deal was signed. They didn't get on the show. They didn't get on there until 2019.
Yeah, it
This
was 18 months before they actually appeared on the network from signing.
so that was the bottom of WWE. That was when
Yes.
they were not selling. That was when they were in the shits, so to say.
Yeah.
Right? So they signed this massive deal when they were at their least popular. And then look what happened. Right? They got this deal
Good
on
lesson right there.
they got this big deal on Fox that exposed their program to a different generation of people. That's true. I see this from my kids in school. A lot of them learned about WWE through SmackDown because it was on network TV, because it got cool. A lot of them started watching because they had Peacock, right? And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
those pay-per-views became PLEs and became a lot more accessible. And this is something that Mike and I have been talking about for a long time on our show, is that having your program more accessible to people does a lot to help spread awareness of it. Because then all of a sudden it seems really cool, right? Even when because WWE and AEW had very similar crowds in 2021, right?
Oh
Only
yeah,
3
I
years
mean
ago.
AEW for the first 2.5 years was almost always beating WWE's gates. If you took out the big four pay-per-views,
Mhm.
I mean there was Raws that had attendance around 3,000 at that period.
It owned they used to own Chicago, they used to own New York, right? They used to do a really good job, and then they let things slip. I think Mike and I we've talked about this. They let too many people that were Vince failures into the room, and
Yeah.
they had some really bad booking. But I truly believe that perception is more important than anything else. If your company seems cool, people treat it like it's cool, and having more exposure to this company is going to help it. It
Yes.
is.
I think that's one reason
I'm done.
why. No, it's great. I mean, that's great insight, and I'm glad you guys are talking about it. I think what you're saying though about through Peacock and how that helped them and helped them with a new generation. These fans are completely different fans than they had, and I don't think people understand the importance of that. But I also think that this is something that was one reason why were so happy to be on Netflix, and they're willing to give up all the international TV deals they had. And yeah, you're on a streamer with Raw, but you're also on the biggest streamer of them all, you
Yeah.
know, and you
And
got a
with
huge contract.
yeah.
It's backloaded, but that gives you your audience to all these young people who have Netflix accounts.
Yeah. Well, they're taking a little bit of a hit potentially financially, because I think with some of the international
Yeah,
deals and like they could have actually,
it's a
gotten more
risk,
money,
man. It's a
but the
huge risk.
exposure, they're what they give up in a little bit of money, they're making up for in exposure. I
Yeah,
know a lot of people are not really, and I think they even said that on Pollock and Thurston, where they're like, there weren't very many suitors for WWE whenever their deals were coming up, but they were able to somehow get this humongous deal from Netflix, which ended up, like, overall, if you take a look at it, what they could have made with all these different deals, they could have piecemealed together. They actually would have made more, but instead they went with the easy route, got the Netflix deal, and they're actually
Yeah.
getting way more exposure. JD's absolutely right. The WWE being on Peacock exposed them to a whole new audience. I think that's been very beneficial, which is why I still contend to this day that all the pay-per-view Max subscription service. I think that would absolutely grow AEW's business. They might take a little bit of a hit up front on the pay-per-view business, but I think they'll grow because of it. That's if Max is not paying premium dollar for whatever it is, 8-9 pay-per-views a year. But if they're somehow able to get a good dollar figure amount for each pay-per-view, I think doing 12 a year on Max would absolutely grow that product and take it to another level.
I agree.
Yeah, well, especially because it's also international, because Max is in 100 million countries or something like that too.
And this is and the other backside of this is WWE going to Netflix has been talked about a bunch, but them going to Netflix takes them out of a lot of international markets where they had deals that AEW is going to slide into.
Yeah.
So overall, this is working out really good for AEW. The biggest concern out of the two TV deals I see, so I know a lot of people think that 3 years isn't a long time. I think 3 years in this media market, guaranteed with a fourth option at double, at double, maybe more, I think is fantastic.
I think
with
that's a
WWE,
win-win for
the
both
problem is that
sides.
so much of what's that?
I think that's a win-win for both sides because if you're looking at it from AEW, they're getting almost they're getting double what they were getting for 3 years. They're locked in, and if you're WBD, if AEW's popularity continues to sink a little bit, you're not tied to them for very long. You're not locked into a 5 to 10 year deal like Netflix is with WWE. And if you do cancel them at some point, you'd ultimately have to pay that contract out if you cancel them early. So this way, you had 3 year deal, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. So I think it works for both sides.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's a good deal.